the Rosh Yeshiva, the WebYeshiva, and I'd like to share with you a few thoughts about Yom Yerushalayim, which happens to be this evening in Yerushalayim. After Mara begins the day that is called Yom Yerushalayim. This shiur, or this podcast, is dedicated by Lisa Korman and Allan Goldenberg, friends of the WebYeshiva. We've spent time together and enjoyed every minute, of course. And I hope that they can find the time in Chicago to listen in on what we're going to be talking about. This podcast is dedicated by Lisa Korman and Allan Goldenberg in memory of Martin Korman. Moshe Eliyahu ben Mordechai ber וגנגל, Lisa's father. You know, when I think about Yom Yerushalayim, I have to admit that I find some of what I think about a little annoying to me. What should have been a kind of happy memory. I was in Israel. I moved to Israel in 1965. And so we lived through the 6-Day War, Miriam and I together. And it was just, it was wonderful. But if I get back to the schools that I went to and the Torah that I've learned, it always seemed to me that what we are instructed to do is to try to understand history. Whether things happened that were good or things happened that were bad, it was our job to kind of reconcile the events with our theology. The theology, of course, is that Kodesh Baruch Hu is in charge, and that somehow it works out as it should. And so the Torah tells us, when Pesach comes around on the calendar, we have to remember Pesach. And even when it's not on the calendar, when it has to do with other mitzvot, we also have to remember Pesach, because Pesach was the entree to Matan Torah, to receiving the Torah, to the Jewish people accepting the burden of the mitzvot, and the agreement to remake themselves into a worthy entity. And so history is not just what we were doing, but history is there for us to analyze and try to determine what the relationship between us on earth and HaKadosh Baruch Hu in heaven is at this particular historical moment. And so even if the redemptive aspect of the 6-Day War is imperfect, even if the redemptive aspect of the wars that we're having now, or the whole world, is redemptive, well, that's might be the way we are supposed to look at it. It's not either or, but the history of what is going on, of what's happening to us, what happened to us during the 6-Day War, and what's happening to us today in the war against the Hamas, which is certainly a legitimate war. But it's a war that we should be thinking about. We should be studying ourselves in these particular events in history. But no, somehow we've kind of turned away. And it's become a kind of political arena. We're interested in pushing ourselves around, our friends around them. We don't think about ourselves as being in history and in trying to understand what exactly is happening to us. Instead, what we're doing is organizing little battles with each other about who's right and who's wrong, and what is going to fix everything and what can fix nothing. And so we find ourselves stuck in an impossible situation. I want you to look at a pasuk, just one pasuk, a pasuk in Yeshayahu, Perek Samach pasuk of Bet. You see it? You see it there on the sheet. Hakaton yeh le'elef. Katon, small in numbers, I guess. Limited. I mean, it's not always so easy to understand what Yeshayahu is referring to. Hakaton yeh le'elef. Katon, somebody not yet capable of pulling the burden of obligation. Yeh le'elef. He'll become 1,000-fold. Vatzair, the young, parallel, I guess, to Katon, legoy atzum ani Hashem. So the small, that's us. We're small. But we will become mighty. There'll be a lot of us. Elef. Vatzair legoy atzum ani Hashem, and there's a kind of promise that the Tzair will become great. So this sounds like a reference to the end of days. I mean, that's what's going to happen according to the Rambam. The end of days will be Shibud Malchuyot, that the political situation will change. We won't be small and weak, we'll be big and strong. Ani Hashem, it's a promise. And then the two words added onto the pasuk, Be'ita achishena. Be'ita achishena. Be'ita sounds like the Hebrew word eight, like a time, a particular time. Be'ita, in its time. Achishena. Achishena is the Hebrew word lachush. I'll feel it coming. Be'ita achishena. Now, that's, Be'ita achishena sounds like it means when the time comes for this remarkable change, it will be hurried up when the time comes. Because it doesn't have a precise time, but things will really change for the better. Now this pasuk was explained, or the ending of the pasuk was explained in the Gemara in Sanhedrin. You see the third source, the Gemara in Sanhedrin, Daf Tzarichet Amud Aleph, Amar Rabbi Alexandri, an Amora, Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi, Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi had a kasha. He didn't understand something. What didn't he understand? K'tiv be'ita or k'tiv achishena. On the one hand, it says be'ita when the time comes, and achishena will make it fast. How could it be fast and regular? How could it be fast and the time comes? Zachu achishena, lo zachu be'ita. If the people deserve it, it'll come quickly. If they don't deserve it, they'll have to wait till the time of Geula, of redemption comes. And this is repeated by Rashi. Who said, Rashi in the Gemara in Sanhedrin, on the pasuk in Yeshayahu, Be'ita achishena, zachu achishena lo zachu be'ita. That's the interpretation of Rabbi Alexandri. So that the end of things, the end of history, the point at which it all makes sense, and everybody understands what happens and what the meaning of history and what is supposed to happen, and there's going to be some sort of redemption, which we're not talking about, but a redemption, it's a kind of a neutral word. There'll be redemption. That redemption, according to Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, there was a contradiction. Achishena versus Be'ita. Be'ita means when it's supposed to come. There's a date written someplace in heaven. And on that date, the redemption will come. Be'ita. But it could also be Achishena. We're encouraged. We're encouraged to act in a special manner, to act in a particular way. Achishena, then we get it earlier. We get it earlier. But I saw the following question in one of the commentaries on Yeshayahu. It says, it's not as though usually in a case like this kind, you have two psukim. You have two psukim. One pasuk would say Ba'ita, and another pasuk would say Achishena. And then we'd say, well, which pasuk is right? How do we validate the fact that they're two different words or two different psukim? That's the way we learn Torah. That's the way we learn Torah. But here, Be'ita Achishena is part of the same pasuk. It's like one idea, Be'ita Achishena, that there's a Be'ita time, a time that's fixed. Achishena, I'll make it faster. God says, that's a good interpretation, not the interpretation of Rashi. Rashi says it's up in the air. And if it's up in the air, then it makes sense to me that we should always be looking to understand what's happening. Are we in a state of Ba'ita or in a state of Achishena? Can we imagine to ourselves just a little push and we've done the redemption? We've gotten to redemption, or sometimes a little push is not enough. We have to push. We have to push, but there's still Be'ita that we have to struggle with or think about. So Be'ita Achishena is not perfectly clear. And that's apparently what Yeshayahu wanted. What he wanted to say is that just as we speak about the tshuva in this vein, redemption is something that is a movable feast. There are opportunities all the time. Things happen to us Am Yisrael, all the time. There are happy times and there are tragic times. There are times that we would like to repeat again and again, and then there are times that we'd like to forget about and deny and not have any continuity with. So this is our obligation. Our obligation is to make the most of it. Make the most of it. So I can tell you as a witness, I was here. I witnessed the events of the 6-Day War. I mean, I wasn't in the war. That would come for me a little later. But I was here. I mean, the feeling that we had at that moment, the feeling of joy, which did not just derive from victory, but it derived from the fact that we felt that everything was changing. It was connected, I think, to the fact that suddenly we could go to the old city and dream about how the world would become as we dreamt it would become. That suddenly it made sense to imagine that we would be in control of Harabayat, the Temple Mount, that would be able to go to daven at the Kotel anytime you wanted, anytime you were able. This was an opportunity for joy such as in my lifetime we didn't have beforehand. and we haven't had since. So it seems to me that what cries out to us is be involved. Be involved in what happened as a result of our history. We have to grab onto it. We have to make sure that the history of the modern Israel doesn't escape us, doesn't run off in its own path. We have to imagine. It's an obligation. It's just like sitting in a sukkah on Sukkot or eating a matzah on Pesach. We have an obligation to the story. We have an obligation to be worthy of the story. And we have an obligation to turn the story into the greater reality. That's what we're doing, or that's what we should be doing. It seemed to me that in some manner we tried, but we gave up. We are not able to write this chapter of our history in a reasonable way, in a way that emphasizes the grandeur of it and also emphasizes the spiritual quality of it, which is something that's left to us as individuals to discover and to be involved with. Well, we don't know exactly what that is or what there is to do or how we can make that happen, but we do know that we could. We know that we could. The Torah says that we can. And if the Torah says that we can, so I assume that we would all agree that we can. So Be'itach Ishena means it's up to us. It's up to us. If it's Be'ita, it means we have to wait. It's we cause that wait. We're not taking advantage of what happened. Achishena means we could take advantage. We could make a demand. We could turn to heaven and say, we want Achishena. And if we don't do it, we have only ourselves to blame. It seems to me that participation in what's happening or will go on is a greater obligation than separation. I know there are different ways of saying it and ways of talking about it, but again, I think separation is not what Geula is about. What Geula is about, the modus vivendi, whereby all the people of Am Yisrael can see themselves as being involved with something special, something that never happened in history, but is happening now right before our eyes. So I wish you all happy Yom Yerushalayim. Simcha is a legitimate reference to history, joy. When history seems to be in support of your ideals, that's a cause of joy. That's a cause of joy. It makes you laugh, it makes you smile, makes you feel like all things are as they should be. So I wish you all well at Yom Yerushalayim. I hope you can find the time to think about what it might mean to you as an individual, to you as a member of a family, you as a member of a larger group and a culture. Chag Sameach to you all.